And without further ado, let me tell you a little bit about Paul. Paul Rademacher has been exploring human consciousness for over 40 years and has published two books on the subject. His most recent, A Hole in the Wall of Reality: How the Heart Reveals Hidden Dimensions of Time, Money, Dreaming, and Enlightenment, is and this book is based on his experiential online class offered through Glide Wing Productions and draws on his personal journey into the heart's mystery. Paul is a former executive director of the Monroe Institute, known for its pioneering work in the expansion of human perception and awareness. Its semi-sync technology has proven to be enormously effective in helping people to reach profound altered states. After several life-changing mystical experiences, Paul began training to become a Presbyterian pastor. He graduated from Princeton Theological Seminary with a Master of Divinity degree. However, he left the ministry in 2000 after 15 years to seek a deeper understanding of the numinous outside of traditional theologies. Paul is an acclaimed public speaker, seminar leader, building contractor, designer, and journeyman carpenter. His first book, published in 2007, is The Spiritual Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe: Travel Tips for the Spiritually Perplexed. I love that title. So I am now going to hand over the platform here to Paul as he presents his workshop, The Power of the Dreaming Heart. Thanks so much and welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Darcy. And before I get started, I do want to thank everybody that's connected with the Coptic Fellowship. You all have been just wonderful to me and given me this opportunity. I spoke at the Coptic conference a couple of times back when it was a live gathering, and I was just treated so well there. And I was delighted when Steve asked me to come back and be a part of this online conference. So Darcy and Steve and Laura Joy, and is Brenda here too, I think?
No.
Oh, she's not here. Okay. Well, all of you, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you do. And welcome to all of you who've decided to spend this time with us today. We're kind of limited in time. Ordinarily, I would love to go through and have everybody just introduce themselves and say why you're here, but I'm already running out of time. So please forgive me. That is not an oversight and doesn't mean that I don't really appreciate you being here. So let's just dive right in. The date was October 10th, 2010. And I found myself officiating the wedding of my oldest son, Sean. Now, I had left the ministry about 10 years before that. And even though you leave the ministry, everybody still thinks that you want to do weddings. But when your kid asks you to do it, you just can't say no. And so here I was standing in front of this congregation, and right in front of me, to my left, is my son, the groom, and to his left is the best man, his brother, Jesse, and then the groomsmen. To my right, all the bridesmaids. And all of a sudden, the bride comes walking down the aisle, and she is absolutely radiant, just beaming. And I look over at my son's face, the groom, and his eyes are getting red, and there's a tear coming down his cheeks, and his chin's starting to jiggle. And I look around and everybody else is already in tears. I'm starting to get in tears. And I got to tell you right now, I'm an ugly crier. And so here I am. I've got tears streaming down my cheeks and my nose is running, snot's coming out. And I was so busy trying to prepare for this, I didn't think that I was going to get this emotional. And so I didn't think about getting a Kleenex. And I was thinking about rubbing my nose on my black sleeve of my robe, but that was not going to work out very well. My son, Jesse, the best man, suddenly breaks ranks and he goes down and grabs a Kleenex from his mother, who's sitting in the first row, comes back and he's dabbing his eyes. I grab that tissue from him and I start dabbing my eyes. I'm wiping my nose, and the groom then grabs it from me. He's wiping his eyes, and then he's dabbing the eyes of his bride. And then the next thing I know, that tissue is making its way down through the maid of honor, to the bridesmaid, all the way to the end. And it suddenly struck me that this was more than an ordinary wedding. The reason why it was more than an ordinary wedding was because about 3 years previously, the groom, my son Sean, we thought we were going to lose him. For some reason, he couldn't eat. He couldn't keep any food down. And here he was losing weight day after day, month after month, and a grown man closing in at 120 pounds. And at the time, he was living in Las Vegas. Jackie and I were living in Florida. And Jackie and I would switch off trying to help out. And Susie, his bride-to-be, had her hands full. So we would just go out there to try and help. Took him to the hospital, countless doctors, did all kinds of tests. Nothing could help. He even had surgery, and he was still losing weight. So finally, we took him to a hospital in Los Angeles to see if maybe they could find some kind of help. They ran all the same tests and even some of their own. And then came the phone call. My wife, Jackie, and Sean's brother were with him in Los Angeles at the time. And I dialed in from Florida. And they delivered us the bad news at that point. And they said, look, there's nothing we can do for him. We don't know what's wrong. There's no medications that we can give him. He's going to have to leave the hospital. And we were like, leave the hospital? Wait, you got to be kidding. This kid's going to die. If he goes home, he's going to die. And no matter what we said, there was nothing that we could do to persuade them. And so Jackie and Jesse gathered up his frail body and they piled him into the car for the 5-hour trip to Las Vegas. And along the way, they stopped to get something to eat. And for some reason, Sean asked for a bite of food. And he kept it down. And then he asked for another bite, and he kept that down too. And over the next weeks and months, he continued to eat and gain weight until here he was now 3 years later, 180 pounds, ready to start a new life with his bride. And I knew, that tissue, as it made its way down, was kind of gathering up all of our collective emotions, because I think all of us there knew that this was so much more than a wedding. This was literally a resurrection. And I think you can only appreciate the emotion behind something like that when you're a parent, when you're on the verge of losing a child, and then somehow a miracle happens. We still to this day don't know what was wrong with him. One thing I noticed in that experience was that it felt like my heart was getting ready, was just almost being torn apart in the seams, as if it was trying to get big enough for this experience. I didn't realize it then, but I think that was the beginning of this journey for me into the heart. It came from a very personal place, and it has continued to be very personal for me ever since. This journey into the heart has brought up entirely new perspectives for me that I had never dreamed of before. One of them I talked about in the conference, which is there's a different identity that happens when we move into the heart. This identity that we have up here in the brain, which is something that is the focus of our culture and society, where we believe that everything happens in the brain. And so we automatically move to the brain in everything, in our thoughts and our actions. But this is a certain identity that is the egoic identity. It's the separated self. It's the isolated self. It's the self that knows itself in opposition to the world around it. I know myself because, I'm not crazy like she is. I know myself because, I'm smarter than he is. I know myself because, I'm not as good as that athlete. And so we have all these distinctions that we make that separate us from the world around us and make this distinction. And all of these add up to a story that we keep up here. It's the story of our life, and we believe that's who we are. This is the narrative self, and it's a narrative self because it can't exist apart from this story. In fact, it has to have the story in order to understand itself that it even has an existence. And so it will fight to the death to preserve that story. That story is filled with all kinds of beliefs. Now, they may be right, they might be wrong, but mostly they're kind of wrong. But still, we believe them as if they are absolute God's truth. But when we drop into the heart, something different happens. Now we're moving into a place of silence. And it's in that place of silence that the story begins to drop away. Now, I again, in the conference, I talked about how I sort of landed into this almost, well, I was going to say by accident, but I don't think there are any accidents at all anymore. At the time, I was the executive director of the Monroe Institute, and Monroe Institute is just a great place. They do great work, marvelous, wonderful process that people go through. It's life-changing in so many ways. But when I became the executive director, I don't know if you've had this experience, but when you get on the inside of an organization, sometimes it doesn't match your expectations on the outside. And part of the reason is because people are people. For some reason, it isn't long before the shadow side begins to emerge. And so I would find myself in these situations where two people that I dearly loved and appreciated and respected were going at it like cats and dogs. And there was no resolution to it. Everybody was staking out their own territory, going to battle, and everybody wanted to defend their need to be right. That's a big one. The need to be right. Well, that goes back to the story up here, right? That's what we carry. This story that tells us what we think the world should be, and we believe that's the way it has to be, and we'll go to battle against anything that messes with that. So I was mulling this over, and as I was walking on the beach one day, I was on vacation from the Monroe Institute, and throwing these questions out to the universe as if like somebody would answer, right? Why is it that we can't get along? Why is it that you get into an organization and people just go to battle? Why does this shadow side always emerge? So I'm stepping over a starfish, and the surface churning on my right, and the mist is blowing over me, and all of a sudden 4 words come back, and it says, "Go to your heart." I'd heard this voice before, and I knew it represented a major change in the direction of my life. So that night, I didn't know what I was doing, but I went home, and at night, I simply moved my attention from my head to my heart. And I noticed several things happening. One was that the depression that had kind of been stalking me most of my life began to lift. It was really amazing, and I started to actually enjoying life. I'd never done that before. And also, I noticed that when I dropped from the head into the heart, I began to drop into silence. Now, this brain was always on. It was always working. It was always commenting on everything. You know, how am I doing? You know, how am I looking at other people, whatnot. But all of a sudden, when I moved into the heart, things got silent. And that was really quite a shock to me. I didn't think that that was possible for me. But if you think about it, when we're moving out of here in this domain where the thoughts are, where the story resides, and that story is something that keeps our egoic sense of being intact because it defines us as in opposition to what's the environment around us. I am me operating in an environment that is not me. That is the brain's perspective. When you drop into the heart, now you're dropping out of that story. And in that silence, then another dimension of being has an opportunity to express itself. This is the sense of being that is the universal sense of being, because it's no longer constricted by the story. Remember that we are who we are by making distinctions. And when those distinctions drop away, now we can begin to relax into something that's much more expansive. And this is the heart. The heart knows about relationships. The brain is always trying to slice and dice and divide and go to the lowest common denominator. The heart specializes in relationships, not just with other people, but also with all kinds of other dimensions of being, as we'll begin to explore here. Now, when I dropped into the heart just before falling asleep at night, I also noticed that my dream world began to explode in marvelous technicolor, in vividness that I'd never experienced before. And this was really striking to me. I wasn't expecting that at all. But it slowly began to realize that because the heart is about relationships, it makes sense that it would be an expert at making a relationship with the dream world. Now, this particular way of dealing with dreams is probably different than anything you've heard of before, because usually when we're looking at dreams, we automatically drop into this assumption that when we're working with dreams, it's about interpretation. You interpret the symbols, and then you know the meaning of the dream. Buy a book, and you can look up a symbol, and you'll get some sense of what that is meaning for you or for the universal sense. Sometimes it's used in therapy, but this particular way of looking at the dream sees the dream as establishing ongoing relationships with the figures that arise out of the dream. Now, just to give you a sense of what I mean by that, shortly after I started into this work of moving into the heart, I had a dream. It was a big dream. It was one of those that just knocked my socks off. I could barely contain the energy that had erupted. In the dream, my wife Jackie and I are supposed to go to this old Victorian house, and we're supposed to steal some documents there. So we walk into the house and realize that it's actually a teaching school. It's like a laboratory, and there are laboratory desks, and there are two men who are the professors up at the front of the class, and they have this casket that's filled with liquid, and they're stirring the liquid with this big oar. And every time they stir it around, this skeleton arises out of the liquid and then falls back again. It rises out and then falls back again. And I suddenly realized that we're in a school of alchemy. And I'm really amazed by that. I should, as an aside, say that prior to this dream, I'd been playing around with the idea that the heart has alchemical properties. Alchemy, as you may remember, is the process of turning base metals into gold or silver. But on a deeper level, it's about changing the base elements of the character and the psyche into that which is much more akin to the spirit. I was just playing around with this idea that maybe the heart it's an alchemical heart. So now here I'm in a dream, and I'm in a school of alchemy. And we're stealing these documents and hoping that no one will see us at the back of the room. One of the professors comes up to us and he says, "Would you like a bag for those?" No, we don't need a bag. So we got what we were going to take. We go out into the courtyard, and there we meet a woman who's in about her 50s. And Jackie and I both look at her and we go, "I know you." It was as if we had rediscovered a relationship that had gone back eons, for lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. And we were in awe of this relationship that we had suddenly rediscovered. And the woman looked at us and put her hands on her hips, and she said, "You say that every time we meet." When I woke up from the dream, I was so in awe. All I could do was sit on the edge of the bed and hold my head in my hands, and I knew in that moment that this relationship was the most important thing in my life. It was that powerful. And I vowed to continue this relationship in any way I possibly could. So each night, before I would go to bed, I would call this person up, and she would come to me. Same thing in the morning. And when it was in the morning, I found out that she really was amazing in dealing with dreams. Together, we would go back into the dream. After I've wakened up, we'd go back into the dream and re-experience it. And she would point out different things that maybe I had missed and say, you know, this is important and this connects to this. And she was just like bing, 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 bing. No time wasted. She was spot on. This was somebody I had met in a dream. And I developed this ongoing relationship with her in which she continued to teach me. And together we developed in entirely new ways. This is what I mean by when you approach the dream from the perspective of the heart, you're opening up the possibility of ongoing relationships with the dream figures that arise. Now, the conference I talked about meeting Alfred, and to make a long story short, you know, Alfred was very successful in the dream world. He knew all things about business and money, which I did not. And I asked him if he would take over my finances, and he said, "Sure, I'd be glad to. I'm good at it. I like to do it." We both knew I was not, and money just started coming out of nowhere. And I stopped counting the money when we reached $500,000. I say that just to give you another example of how a dream figure can arise out of the dream and can become your ally in the work that you're doing. Now, everybody hears that, you know, that story about Alfred, you know, hey, can I borrow Alfred? No, you can't, because it has to come out of your dream. When we're working at the level of the heart, we're working at a level where the issues of the soul predominate. And central to the issues of the soul is your life's mission. And so the dream world that comes to you in this way is going to be about that which supports your life mission, and your life mission is unique. That's why you can't borrow somebody else's dream figures. You can only discover them for yourself because your needs are unique. So when we drop out of this mind with all of its stories and all of its narrative and all of its desire for control, and we drop into the heart, now we're opening up to enormous resources. Now, I do want to say that often you'll hear people talking about how we need to get rid of the ego in order to move spiritually. And I don't agree with that at all. Because I do think the ego is something very precious. And the reason why it's precious is that this story up in here it actually creates your world in a very unique way. You see the world differently from anybody else. And that means that your perspective, from the perspective of the universe, is priceless. You're looking back on the universe in a completely unique way. And so that is highly, highly valued. And I can almost guarantee that that's the case. I've experienced this. I won't go into the reason why, but it's one of the great paradoxes of the universe. You have the all, which is without price, and yet you also have the particular. Both of them are priceless, and both of them are meant to be in a relationship. So when we're working with dreams from the perspective of the heart, we're not looking to eradicate this ego, this mind self. It serves a very important purpose. But what we are hoping to do is to augment it by completing it with this other perspective, which is the universal sense of self. And the object then is to try to bring them together so that they begin to communicate with each other. And when you do that, then you can enter into all kinds of creativity and wonder that are really quite amazing. So the heart opens up new potentials. but it isn't meant to be the only way in which we go through life. We're looking for ways in which we can integrate this and become more whole in every sense of the word. So let me stop right there and see if anybody has any questions about anything that I've said up to this point. And it's okay if you don't.
If you have a question, feel free to just unmute.
Nancy, go ahead.
Okay, you said before you go to sleep at night, you drop into the heart, and you are asking for a dream or a meaningful experience. Is
Yeah,
that
that's
it?
a great
Or
that's
do
a
you
great
just allow
question.
yourself, you allow yourself to go into the heart, and then you don't, I'm thinking the ego mind talking to the heart. Well, you don't want that, right?
Well, when you move your attention to the heart, if you do it correctly, I don't want to say correctly, that puts too much pressure on people, but if you experiment with it long enough, then you'll begin to sense that silence that moves you out of the brain and the sense of control that the brain wants. But you bring up a very important point that I'd like to go into because it is crucial to what we're talking about here. When we fall asleep at night, usually we think that there's only two kinds of consciousness. You're either awake or asleep. But what I began to find is that when you move into the heart, just before you fall asleep at night and before you get out of bed in the morning, there's a third state of awareness, which is the twilight awareness. I call it the twilight awareness because it sits between waking and sleeping, and it has the capacity to kind of knit them together as a transition point. So what I do in this twilight awareness is I laying down, I go through a relaxation process. I need to talk about that because the relaxation in this work is different perhaps from what you may have experienced in the past. But I go through an extensive relaxation and then I move into the heart and I just sit there and stay there. And, if somebody wants to talk to me and, from the other worlds, and often they'll do it during that time, and then I'll fall asleep. But what I'm doing is actually creating this space that's like a welcome space to the dream, this third awareness, this twilight awareness, which is still, it's relaxed, it's at peace, it's silent, and it makes room for that which is going to emerge through the night. It's a way of sort of anticipating what is to come and almost offering a thank you in advance for what is going to come in the night. Now, this twilight awareness is kind of unique in that it knits together these two other ways of being that are usually separate. Usually we're awake, and that awaking life doesn't have a lot to do with the dream, but sometimes, some of it will spill over, but the two don't necessarily work together. But in this third state, in the twilight space that is prepared by the heart, now new possibilities for communication and communion can happen between those two worlds. So in the morning when I wake up, I go back into that space. Relax. Before I get out of bed, maybe I'll go to the bathroom first, but before I get out of bed for real, I'll relax, move into this heart space, and then I've noticed through the years that I tend to work with different people who have arisen in the dream world. So, but let's just say I'm working with this woman that came to me and was so good at working with dreams, I would invite her back in, and we would go back into the dream together. Now, one thing I forgot to mention in that story is that I didn't really catch the name of this woman, so I kind of gave her a name, and I think I call her something like Barbie or something like that. In the middle, one day, we're back in a dream, and she's leading me through it, and all of a sudden she stopped, just dead stopped, and she said, "My name is Gwendolyn. You might want to look it up." I thought, well, I better do that. So I looked it up, and I didn't know this, but Gwendolyn was the wife of Merlin the magician. Merlin, who was the consummate alchemist. Now, remember that I had been dealing with the heart as an alchemical entity. I'd had the dream in which I went to a school of alchemy. The woman who was in that dream was the head mistress of that school of alchemy, who came and then worked almost a alchemical magic with the dreams as we would go back into them. And then she tells me to go and look up in real life, and I find out she's the wife of the consummate alchemist, Merlin the magician. Now, note what's happened here. My dream life, my intuitional life, my meditation life, my twilight life, my waking life all come together into a whole, into a mosaic that I could have never, ever fashioned on my own. This is the kind of magical stuff that begins to happen because when you're dealing with dreams in this way through the heart, you're dealing with a genius, far more intelligent than your waking mind is. And you begin to discover just the most amazing things. And it's really quite wondrous. So, Nancy, did that answer your question about how?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you for asking that because you helped me to go back to something I
Very much
forgot.
so. Mhm.
Mhm.
This is so fascinating.
Well, it's been fascinating for me, and it's different from anything that I've ever discovered. And I can't say that I've done it on my own at all. You know, it's just stuff that somebody's been much smarter than I am has been taking me through this. Any other questions before we move on to the next part?
Paul, I have a question. Can you give us some just quick steps about how you drop from your head into your heart, please?
Okay.
Thank you.
Who was that? I didn't see who asked that.
It's Monty, Montana.
Hi, Montana. Thank you for that question.
Thank
We're going to actually do an exercise that will help you do that. And then we'll do hopefully a second one and maybe even a third one before we get all done here. So since you've asked the question, let's just go ahead and do that together. What I'm going to have you do is I'm first going to lead you through a deep relaxation. But I want to say a word about relaxation before we get into that. And to help you understand that we're doing relaxation for a different purpose than maybe you might have discovered in other meditation practices. This brain self up here, as it's making its distinctions, it's also putting up barriers to protect what it believes reality to be. And part of what it's also doing is it's putting barriers up in the body. Now, maybe you've heard before of, you talk about armoring, body armor from emotional trauma, et cetera. That's not what I'm talking about here. This is like the brain sets up the body in sentry mode, sentry, to be a guard against that which can interfere with the story. And we carry those as tension in the body. And I've noticed that this relaxation is important because it lets go of that tension. And with that tension is also the control that the mind wants. The brain wants control above all else because it doesn't trust the world. Whereas the heart is open to the world and understands that we are here because of the grace of the world. But when we start to let that go, that tension in the body that we hold as armor and a defense against that which might surprise us or might be different from what we expect or believe, we're also dropping out of control into this other space that's open. I've noticed that, for instance, when I'm doing this practice in the morning, say I'm working with a dream with Gwendolyn or someone else, I've noticed that when things get strained, when it's not flowing very well, I realize that there's tension in my body, and that's a tip off to me that the brain is trying to assume control again, because it doesn't like silence. And if like if the conversation lulls, we got to fill it with some words. Got to put words in there, and so it'll tense up and want to insert itself. And so that's a good tip off to me that, oh, okay, let go. And mostly, if I just let go and shut up, wonderful things happen. Okay, so let's do a quick practice here. What I'm going to do is lead you through a relaxation period. Then I'm going to invite you to breathe very gently, almost like you're breathing in stillness. And eventually we're going to follow that breath into the heart. And when we get to the heart, all I want you to do is just notice. See if there's any difference between this way of encountering the world and this way. See if you can notice what those differences are. Okay, does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. All right, so let's go ahead right now. If you can get yourself as relaxed as you possibly can, take some deep breaths. You're among friends. All is well. Take some more deep breaths. And now let's begin a process of relaxation. We're going to pretend that we're stepping into a pool of water or a bath. It's nice and warm. First, you're going to put your feet in. And you feel the warmth as the water comes up over your ankles. It's delightful. And feel the muscles and tissues of your feet begin to relax, expand, almost as if there's space between the atoms and the molecules of your feet. Space. Now move a little bit deeper into the water, up to your knees. Again, it feels so wonderful. Feel your calves and shins, muscles there relaxing, expanding, as if there's space between the molecules of those areas. Now slide deeper into the water, up to your hips. Feel the relaxation that happens there as you let go of the tensions. Relaxing, letting go, expanding, space. And now slide a little deeper up to your navel and feel the relaxation that happens in those areas, in your hips and genitals and lower stomach and back. Letting go, relaxing, expanding, space. Now slide into the pool up to your neck as your chest and upper back and shoulders, arms and hands are soothed in the water. Letting go of any tensions that you feel in those areas, expanding, relaxing, space. Now slide into the water a little deeper so that your head is tipped back. And the water's now up around your ears and the back of your head, the crown of your head, up to your chin. Feel them relax, letting go, expanding, space. Now someone comes by with a warm, wet washcloth and places it over your face, just as they do on those long flights in the airplane. Feel the warmth, relaxing, expanding, space. Now, in this relaxed state, begin to focus on your breath. Begin to breathe very gently, quietly, almost as if you're breathing in stillness, almost breathing as if you're not breathing at all. As if you're being breathed by something else. And now follow this stilled breath as it moves slowly into your body. Follow it as it moves into the lungs. And exhale, slowly, in stillness. Follow that breath again now as it makes its way into the heart center. Breathing into the center of all stillness, the heart. Notice. What do you feel? What do you sense? For some people, it'll be like warmth in that area. For others, it might be a sense of light. For others, it might be music playing. It could be anything. It doesn't matter. Just notice what it is for you. This is a place of infinite discovery, place of wonder. This is the door to your universal self. This is the beginning of the space that is the twilight awareness. Place of relationships and communion. And now, slowly let go of that experience. And I'm going to count you back to our previous waking awareness as I count down from 10 to 1. And as I count down from 10 to 1, you'll begin to reintegrate with the body that you had before. We will begin now. 10. Notice the sensations in your face, your eyes, cheeks, mouth, lips. 9. Notice feeling again in the back of your head, the crown of your head, the neck, your ears. Coming back into waking awareness, 8. Feel your body again with your shoulders and your arms and hands, chest and back. 7, 6. Notice the sensations in your solar plexus and pelvis. 5, 4. Feel the feelings in your upper legs, thighs, hamstrings, knees. 3. Notice the sensations in your lower legs. 2. 1. Feeling back into your feet again and welcome back into your body. As you regain normal waking consciousness, whatever that means for any of you. Okay. That is a very quick and dirty way of moving into the twilight awareness just before you fall asleep at night. And you can move back into that same awareness when you wake up in the morning too. And it's that wonderful space of integration that can happen between the conscious and the unconscious. Does anybody have any reactions to that you notice that you'd like to share?
Well, I noticed that I had some things on my mind and they were just rattling away while you were talking. And as soon as I came down into the heart, it just was like, no need to worry about those things.
Yeah. Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Laura Joy.
Yeah, actually, it was very interesting because as I came into that heart space, it's like the heart was so big. It was just huge. And then, so I was just all part of it. And it
Yeah.
just became more expensive and more expensive and more expensive. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very well said. Thank you for that. That's great. Because that really gets to the heart of what we're looking at here, which is a difference. Imagine going through the world with that sense of being. The interesting part about this is that you can drop into that space in any situation you want. You're not confined to just when you're lying in bed. You can go into, say, a meeting. A quick story here. When I was younger and in the ministry, I didn't have necessarily a lot of self-confidence. And one day I found myself moderating this meeting of church leaders. And I had no business moderating a meeting with these people. And I knew it. And I was deathly afraid that they knew it too. And so I was really scared and nervous and asking for help. And all of a sudden this voice said, "You may not know how to run this meeting, but there is somebody who does. Trust that and step into that person's space." I did. I had no idea who it was, but I was immediately filled with confidence. The meeting went off beautifully. You know, it was incredible. These were big egos right in this room. And it taught me that consciousness is a field. And so when Laura Joy, when we're moving into this field, that's a source of identity that we can take with us. You can get very creative with this and use the heart to actually craft situations in the waking world. You know, relationships that are giving you trouble, or people at work, or things aren't going. You can set the stage in advance by intentionally bringing this heart space into it and crafting the environment that you're going to walk into. So just one possibility.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So are you saying that when you go into this space, you're going into the field? When you're going into the heart, you're going into the field?
Yeah, I think I think we have any number of fields that are affecting us at any given time. And this is one field that we can gain experience in that is beyond our normal way of dealing with the world. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Did I?
I've been in this field before. I've been in this heart before.
Great.
Sometimes I can wake up in the middle of the night, but it's there. It's this.
Mhm.
I'm not there, but I am there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'm listening, I'm experiencing, but I'm not there. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, absolutely, because you're talking about a different sense of self, right?
Mhm.
We get so accustomed to this egoic sense of self. It's like it's the only one we recognize as who we are. And so it gets very difficult to describe who we are when that starts to fall away. So yeah, I understand what you're saying for sure. In fact, it was very well said. Thank you for that.
Oh, well, there's one other experience that I'm having
Hmm.
is sometimes I'll wake up and I'll go, why am I awake? And I realize because it's so quiet.
Mm.
Now,
Yes.
okay, the stillness woke me up. So
Mhm.
where am I or what am I experiencing in that stillness? I
Mhm.
mean, there's nothing. It's
Mhm.
like it's the field or the void or just
Mhm.
this
Mhm.
experience. And then I lay there listening and I'm not thinking like you talk about, I'm not feeling, I'm just listening.
Yeah.
Is that the same thing? The heart?
Yeah, no, that's certainly an aspect of it. It's going to be different for everybody, I understand, but your experience is quite beautiful, I think. And to me, the work then becomes how do we integrate that space in the middle of the night with our waking world so that we can
Yeah.
tap into that so that the waking world now becomes more magical, more wonderful, more creative. And I think that's the process of bringing the heart ever more intentionally into the waking life, so that again we're looking at an integration between the two. That
Well,
is
sometimes you can experience the heart, can you not? With the simple thing of, I did it the other day. I mean, I basically kept that thought of my heart, experiencing this from my heart, and I did the dishes. I did a mundane, boring
right.
job. And it was elating. It was freeing.
Perfect.
And all I
Perfect.
did was the dishes.
All right. So, but you're saying something really important there because that's what I'm talking about. How life, you sort of reclaim the magic of life. The mundane becomes magical. And you realize there's so much more to this world than we allow ourselves to believe or to experience. And so
Right.
we're somewhat impoverished, almost self-impoverished in a way. And so I love what you just said. I mean, because that says it very perfectly, better than I could say it. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Welcome. Thank you for this experience. It's wonderful. It's like, okay, I did do that, didn't I?
Great.
One real quick thing, when you were leading us into the pool of water, that
Mhm.
was an experience that I hadn't learned before. And I
Mm.
found that very helpful and relaxing. But the
Good.
thing that struck me was I felt like symbolically we were going back in the womb,
Mm.
because you know how safe and protected you are in the womb, in the water of the embryonic.
Yes.
Yeah, and you're all closed off, you're
Mhm.
quiet, I mean, so in a way that's what I perceive too.
Beautiful. And again, you bring up a wonderful point. There's a wonderful course called the Finders course. It's developed by Dr. Jeffrey Martin, and I had the privilege of getting to know Jeffrey when I was at the Monroe Institute. He'd stop by every couple of years to see what we were doing, and I didn't have any idea what he was doing. But he went around the world and interviewed people who had experienced some dimension of what people might call enlightenment or nirvana or all kinds of Christ consciousness, you name it. And he developed this course that came out of the data that he achieved in that. And there was something I was going to say about that. Now it's completely dropped out of my mind. It'll come back. Sorry about that. What did you say just before that? There was something you said that was, oh, I know. One of the aspects of what people often call enlightenment is this sense of safety in the world. This womb-like, that's to use your term, this sense of being enclosed in so that you're not feeling so anxious all the time. And there's a sense of well-being as you move through the world. Again, this is part of dropping into the heart, I think, because we're dropping out of the story of the drama of our life into the silence of something that's much bigger, much more sustaining for us and for everyone else. So it's a very different way of experiencing the world. By the way, I would suggest, if you're interested in this, to just go out for a walk sometime and try dropping into the heart and see what that's like to be moving through the world from that perspective. And then you could experiment with, maybe bring it into a business meeting even. Who knows, you can change the field as you move into the field. Okay. In the time we have remaining, I don't know if I'm going to get a volunteer for this or not, but I thought the best way to demonstrate for you this
Okay,
work.
excuse me, Paul.
Yeah.
Monty has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't see anybody's hand. So, Monty, go ahead.
Paul, I don't want to take time away because
It's okay.
I really want to hear what all you're going to say.
No.
Just a very quick question. You talked about that we can settle into the heart and set the stage for any interaction.
Mhm.
And I'm going to just take this a little further afield. I'm having a very, very difficult time remembering my dreams. Can I
Good
ask
question.
my heart to help me do that?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That's a great question because almost everybody, it's been clinically proven dreams. But the problem is that not everybody remembers their dreams. So you are dreaming. Part of it, I think, is intention. But not the intention up here, but the intention of the heart. When we're crafting the twilight awareness and expanding that, not giving that some space, we're actually signaling to our unconscious that we're preparing and we're ready to start interacting with our dreams. And when you do that with that kind of heartfelt intentionality, the unconscious seems to respond to that. So, if you're doing that kind of work prior to the dream's going to respond, and you're going to find, I think, over time that you'll start to remember them. But there's some practical tips too. One is to, in the old days, we used to talk about keeping a notebook by the side of the bed. That is another signal to the unconscious. But I think it actually works a lot better if you have your phone there, so that you can take just in the middle of the night, because it's got a lighted screen, you just go to the memo section and just write down a few words about what you remember in the dream right after the dream and when you're waking up in the middle of the night. That you don't have to write the whole dream down. You just a few key words or images or something like that. And then you can use that when you wake up in the morning before you get out of bed, look at those notes, recover that image or those words, and follow them back, almost like you're taking a thread back into the dream. You do this enough times, and eventually you'll start to remember more and more of the dream. But there's also an attitude, I think. I got to the point where I started thinking of my dreams as more precious than gold. It was that important to me. And man, that was the first thing I was going to do when I woke up, no matter what. The other thing that I haven't talked about was I also would, when I was in the twilight awareness in the morning, and I would have this conversation and this interaction with the dream or the dream figures that would emerge out of the dream. And after I would go to the bathroom quickly, I would go to the computer and then I would continue the conversation at the computer. This had the effect of bringing the dream into the waking world in a very concrete way. Now remember, we're talking about integration here. And so this is a way to further integrate the dream world into your waking life. And if you do remember a dream and you can do that, I think it just starts the wheel turning, and it'll get better and better and better. I don't think you're going to have to work at it too hard if you just set your intention that's something you really want to do. Does that help?
Yes, immensely. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Thanks for the question. I love these questions. Is anybody here bold enough to want to work on a dream as a gift to the rest of us? And before you answer that question, let me just prepare the field here a little bit. When in my course that I have through the Glide Wing Productions, I took a big step and decided that there was something really nagging at me, that I just wanted to start a group of some kind. And we did. I asked for volunteers, and we get together about once a month, and we'd work on a dream or dreams together. Now, something very interesting happens when you're working on a dream in a group. One of the things that happens is it's no longer your individual dream. It becomes the group's dream. And it does this in amazing ways. It's jaw-dropping. I got to tell you, it's jaw-dropping because when a person offers their dream, they're doing it as a gift to the group, and that dream comes alive for the group as if it's each of our dreams and it's our dream collectively. So it's speaking on many different levels all at one time. And it can really do some pretty remarkable things in that group setting. Just to give you an example, I had started this group, and then I decided to bring a few more people in, and so I did a little short workshop for the new people, and I asked somebody if they had a dream, and the woman said, "No, I've got a dream, but it's not very good, just not very good. I don't even feel right about offering it." I said, "Look, stop right there. There's no such thing as an insignificant dream. There is no point in judging a dream because you have no idea where that thing's going to go. When we work on it in a group, we're going back into the dream, and now the dream has a chance to expand as we can even begin to explore new areas that we weren't aware of. The dream is a living thing. It's not a dead record." So with these three women, I asked this woman, and she said, "Yeah, I had a dream. Yeah. I had it last night." Indication that the timing on this is pretty crucial. She didn't know I was going to ask for a dream. She said, "Yeah, when I had this dream, I'm a little kid, and there's a gerbil, or it's a hamster, I don't know, but it's died, and I'm just so emotional. I'm just so distraught over this thing." And she's telling this dream in the present. We've all gone into our hearts together and prepared the twilight awareness, and she's telling this dream as if it's happening right now. She comes out of the dream. She says, "I have no idea what that dream's about." And the other two, one of the women spoke up, and she said, "When I was a kid, I had a hamster that died. It was my pet. And I was absolutely distraught. And it just tore me up. And I felt all of that emotion all over again as you took us into this dream." Then the other woman spoke up and she said, for me, when I was a kid, I had a gerbil. It died. And I felt all that anguish and grief as a little kid, first time dealing with death. The woman who presented the dream couldn't figure out why she couldn't understand whether it was a hamster or a gerbil in her dream. The reason why she didn't know what it was because it was both, one for one woman and one for the other woman. So when we're moving into these kinds of dreams like this, we are moving into this collective space where information can travel in a transpersonal way. So anyway, I just thought if somebody had a dream that you'd like to give to the group, we could explore that together, and I'll explain the process. I would lead you through just a brief relaxation. Then we move into our heart space. Then we would connect our hearts with everyone else in the group, and then we would surround the person who is the presenter of the dream in our hearts with that heart space. Then I would invite that person to tell the dream in first person as if it is unfolding in present time. We're not there to interpret it. That's that person's business. We're there simply to witness the dream. And then I might ask the dreamer after it's over, are there parts of the dream that you'd like to explore further? Is there a relationship here that's important to you? Just to asking open-ended questions as we stay in the dream. Now we're doing this when we're in the dream, almost as if we're tourists taking a tour of a city together, and if you're a tourist, you can converse as you're moving through the city or the environment, and you can do the same thing in this dream in this way. I had a woman who was part of that, and she said, I've taken a lot of courses on lucid dreaming, and I wasn't really all that successful with it, but I began to realize that this is really a lot like lucid dreaming, because we're going into the dream, we're aware that it's a dream, and we're experiencing the dream with our conscious mind. And what you can begin to see is that the dream even can morph beyond the presented form in which it was originally told, too. It becomes a living thing in the present moment. So I just thought if somebody was interested in offering a dream, we could do that in the time we have remaining. Does anybody have something that you would like to present to the group? Anybody brave enough? It doesn't have to be a recent dream. It can be something, maybe a recurring dream, something from childhood. I know, it's hard. It's hard for people when you don't know everybody here.
I will jump in and tell you about a reoccurring dream that I had as a child.
Okay.
And I
So
think
let me stop you right there. This is your preference to do this. Would you like to tell the dream first and then retell it in the present moment when we're in the heart space? Or would you like to tell it
I see.
as if it's new once we're in the heart space? Which would you prefer?
I want to do it which is most effective for everybody.
Okay, and I think it might be best if you just do it when we get to the heart space.
Okay.
Nancy, I'll tell you that when it's time to go ahead and present it, and when you're presenting it, kind of go back into the dream yourself and tell us what's happening in the present moment. Okay, we're bringing this thing to life again. Okay, Nancy, thank you so much for that gift. You're wonderful. Okay, so everybody, let's relax. Take a few deep breaths. Exhale. And I'm not going to lead us through the relaxation process again, but I'm going to give you some time for you to do it yourself. Kind of check in with each of your body parts as you move up. Feel that relaxation, that space, that expansion. And begin that process now on your own. trusting that you're in good hands and that there's more at work here than just our own psyche. Feel your body letting go and the space happening in each area. And now begin to breathe in very gently. Stillness, quiet, peace. Breathing in almost as if you were breathing not at all, as if your breathing is being breathed by something else. Now follow that breath into your heart center. Feel the stillness, the peace, the wonder and the magic of this very special sacred place. Now, as you feel your heart center, begin to connect that heart center with all the hearts in this group, reaching out as if we're completing a circle. And now feel your heart connecting with Nancy and embracing her in love and peace, joy, and gratitude for her gift. Thanking her for taking this chance. And Nancy, when you feel you are ready, begin to take us into the dream by narrating it as if it's happening right now, because you're taking us with you.
Well, I'm on the block of the street I lived on. And I know it's me, but I'm observing this little girl. And she starts at the corner on the sidewalk. And there's flowers along each side of the sidewalk. And she's walking down the sidewalk past the houses, and she's picking these flowers. It's a sunny day. And I just observe her picking these flowers, and she walks down this long block past all the houses. And then there's a path that she turns on, and she goes down this dirt path. And it's this building behind one of the neighbors' houses. And it's half built into the land and half built on stilts. And this little girl, she's in a dress and shoes and socks. She's got a bundle of flowers in her hand. And she crawls up under this building and she sits in the sand under the building. And she just sits there. And that's the end of the dream. but it has a sadness to it, but I don't understand it because the dream started out sunny and bright and happy with the flowers. And then it kind of ended where she's sitting under this building all by herself. And that's where the dream ends.
Okay, so let's stay in the dream space. Is there something that you would like to explore, particularly in this dream? Is there a question that you'd like to ask? Is there a conversation you would like to have?
I'd like to know the meaning of it because it's always puzzled me.
Okay.
I
So,
was the observer. I feel sad as the observer, but this little girl that I observed didn't seem to be sad one way or another. She wasn't singing or anything, but
okay.
I
Okay.
wish it would have ended up someplace other than sitting under a building by herself.
Hmm. Is there something you would like to ask her?
Yes, why did you choose to end your walk why did you take your flowers and go sit under a dark building when it was a sunny day?
Okay, so go ahead and ask her that question. Let's see what she has to say.
Well, she's telling me that she just likes the way it feels there.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like it's her own little space, her protected space, perhaps.
Hmm.
So her concept of why she ended up there is different than what I was perceiving. She's not unhappy at all.
So you, as the observer in the dream, can you go into that feeling that you're feeling and explore that a little deeper?
I felt sorry for the little girl, and I don't know why.
Okay, so we're still in the dream now. Okay.
Right.
All right.
Oh, but
So
I'm observing the picture of her sitting there by herself.
mhm. And you're still a participant in the dream as an observer, and you're still having this feeling. In the dream, can you explore the depths of that feeling and why it is that the little girl triggered that feeling?
Um, I think she's lonely, and I don't. I think it's a loneliness. I guess that's the only thing I can put my finger on. And I had that recurring dream so many times.
Mhm.
And I really had no reason to be lonely because we had a very active household but there was no chaos going on around me from the minute I started picking those flowers. I was just all by myself. There wasn't anybody else on the street. There weren't any cars or anybody out in their yard. It was totally me walking down the path and then ending up in this building, and I can see it to this day.
Mhm.
Uh, so I'm just kind of left hanging unless I don't know what to say, but
Well, if you were to engage this little girl, there's some kind of dissonance here between what you're feeling and what the little girl is feeling.
yeah. Hmm.
And I'm wondering if you could explore that further in conversation with her.
Well, I just, it might be the child within.
Okay, we're not going to, let's stay in our heart. We're not going
We're not
analyzing
gonna,
it.
you know,
So what I want you to do, if you feel comfortable doing this, is to, again, imagine that you're in the dream itself still.
mm, hmm
And now have a conversation with the little girl and see what she has to say. You're still in the dream. You don't have to figure anything out. Let's just see what she has to say and what you have to say in response.
well, I asked her, why are you sitting here by yourself with these flowers? And she just says she likes it there.
Mm.
Which, as an observer, I didn't understand.
Mm.
And um, the overall feeling in the dream was a feeling of, as the observer, a loneliness. But she's not lonely, so that makes me feel better.
Mm. Mm.
Maybe I'm not. Am I perceiving what you want me to perceive?
Oh, it's not, we're just experimenting here. There's no
Uh-huh.
right or wrong. So we're just trying to look at the dream as something that's alive in the present moment. And so, is there any other aspect of the dream that you would like to explore further?
No.
Okay. You feel complete at this point then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So, does anybody else have anything that you would like to um, say about the dream for you?
She's content.
Mm.
She's
Good.
content to sit there. She has her flowers. She's safe. It's cool. It's dark. She's
Mm.
content. Just peaceful for her. No chaos. It's quiet. That's what I get from her. She's really not unhappy.
Mm. Thank you.
I
Anyone
get the
else?
feeling that she is enjoying her little walk by herself. She gets to choose what she's doing, where she's going. She comes into this space that is out of the sunshine, but the sand feels cool against her legs, and it's like her little secret hiding place because the house is up on stilts. She can still see outside, she can still see and observe, and it's almost like her own place of comfort and peace, away from maybe her family life is busy or she has a lot of responsibility for a little person. And this is something that she gets to do for herself.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
I sense something too, very much like what Darcy was saying, but even more so. She's more herself in this moment. I don't want to say self-contained, but she's so herself, the pure essence of who she is in that heart space. She doesn't have to do anything, which is really cool. She just is being, and in that silence or in that love or in that peace. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, I see that we're drawing close to the end of the workshop here, and so I really hate that we have to disengage from this dream. But if you all can begin to let go of the dream space and come back to our group together, then I think we're probably going to have to bring things to a close here. So if you can begin to breathe deeply, bring your awareness back to your waking consciousness, and then we can just have a few words to wrap up here. Nancy, thank you for that. My purpose in doing that was just to demonstrate, how you can begin to interact with the dream figures when they arise. And I think there's a lot more that you can explore with this dream, especially when you look at the observer and the feelings that you've got as the observer. Those are just as important as what the little girl is feeling. And so there's a lot, I think, to explore there. And be aware that when you start to walk down a path like this, future dreams can then come and fill in some more detail for you. So the dream is not a standalone thing. It's part of a whole series that begins to unfold if you take this seriously. I can't thank you enough for being willing to do that. And I apologize that it had to be abbreviated, but we're under the constraints of this time limit here.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to explore this further, Nancy, if you want to give me a call or something like that, or send me an email, be happy to do that with you. But I think there's something really important here for you that we haven't
There
even
must be, there must be to have it be reoccurring.
Exactly. So the unconscious, this deep psyche is trying to get your attention with this. So
I had the feeling that the feeling of sorrow was perhaps the young girl experiencing some kind of death, like you gave the example about the hamster, the gerbil, that the young girl doesn't understand how to process those feelings. And so that's what Nancy is experiencing, maybe a grandparent or, uncle or an aunt or a pet. That and the young girl.
Interesting. I did lose and I can't remember when the dream started. You know what I mean? At what point in my life did this dream start? It could have been the death of my dog. I took that really hard.
So this is the way a group can start to work a dream together, because now you're drawing on the wisdom of everybody rather than just your own sense of the dream, and it can really expand your understanding of what's going on. I think, and I would just encourage you to intentionally continue this relationship with this little girl to see where she takes you. Maybe go on a walk with her again somewhere. Who knows? A couple things before we leave. I just, if you haven't had a chance to look at this yet, this is my recent book that just came out, Through the Wall of Reality. I go into much more detail about the things that I've talked about and working with the heart. I'm saying this just because I'm the author. It's really well written. It's amazing.
I'm reading it. I'm reading it, and I'll second that. It's very good. Really, it's almost like you want to read more. And I did put the link to it in the chat. So for those that aren't familiar, there's a chat button at the bottom of your screen. If you move your cursor, it might appear. You click it, you'll see the link for that. And then I also put the link, Paul, to your workshop, your 6-week workshop in there. So if someone wanted to click those links, they could. And see that. So the link to the book on Amazon is there, and your 6-week workshop. So anyway, I'll shut up and let you finish.
You're the best. You are really the best. Thank you so much for doing that. That's exactly what I needed.
Steve, does this chat stay here at all, or do we have to get it now while the program's going?
What you can do is just click on the link, and then it will open up in your browser, and then that will stay. But when the meeting ends, you will lose the chat. So just click on the link right now with your mouse. There's 2 links. If you click it, one will take you to Amazon, one will take you to Paul's.
Listen, also, since you all have been so kind to show up for this workshop, if you have any further questions or you just want to have a conversation around this stuff, I'm open to you emailing me if you want. I'll give you my email address if you want to write it down. I only do this for my best friends. Very Select Company. My email is P as in Paul, L as in Lawrence, and then my last name, Rademacher, Rademacher. So that's PL Rademacher at gmail.com.
And if anybody didn't write it down and they still want to contact Paul or they need any of the links, you can just reach out to info@thecopticcenter.org via email, and we can get it to you that way, either the links or the email if you didn't get it or it doesn't work or something.
You're amazing. Thank you, Steve. Really. Again, thank you to everyone for coming, and it's been such a joy to meet you. I wish you much love and success and peace.
Thank you so much, Paul. Before we leave, I do want to read one of the chats by Pete. He said, love, 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 above all love, each other deeply from the heart. 1 Peter 1:22.
You bet.
So thank you all for joining us this evening and sharing your time, your energy, and your love with Paul and his message. I know that we're all going away with some gems here that we can then put into our own lives, our own dream and twilight awareness work. So thank you so much, Paul. Namaste.
Let's have a fine hand for Nancy for being so brave. Yay, Nancy!
Yay. Thank you, Nancy.
Yeah.
Thank
Have a
you.
great night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.